My wife had another man's baby after I raised her first kid for 7 years, so I divorced her quietly and kept the house and kids. I'm a 33-year-old guy, and for the last 7 years, I've lived my life believing I had built the perfect little family. It sounds cheesy, I know, but every morning when my daughter, ran into my arms yelling, "Daddy," I felt like I'd won some quiet battle life never told me I was fighting. I used to stand in the kitchen sometimes, watching her eat cereal with her tiny legs swinging off the chair, and think, this is what love is supposed to feel like. I thought I was doing everything right. I thought I was the kind of man my father taught me to be. The truth is, Amber got pregnant early, way earlier than made sense, but I stepped up because that's who I am. I remember the day she told me. She was crying so hard she couldn't breathe, and she kept saying, "I'm scared you'll leave. Everyone leaves." I held her, kissed her forehead, and said, "I'm not everyone." And I meant it. I wasn't perfect, but loyalty? That was the one thing I prided myself on. Even when my friend said, "Man, I don't know, she gives me weird vibes," I shut them down. I thought they were judging her unfairly. Amber used to squeeze my hand and whisper, "You saved me. You saved us." And I believed her. I wanted to believe her. For years, those words made me feel needed, like I had a purpose beyond myself. But there were red flags, small, almost forgettable at first. Nights she didn't come home until 3 a.m. with an excuse flimsier than tissue paper. Text messages she'd tilt her phone away to hide. Sudden bursts of anger whenever I asked simple questions like, "Are you okay?" I shrugged each one off, convincing myself love required patience. I didn't know then that every small red flag was actually a breadcrumb, leading toward a truth that would shatter everything I thought I knew. This part of the story all started with something so simple, so harmless. It still blows my mind how it ended up unraveling my entire life. One afternoon, my daughter brought home a school packet, just routine stuff. Emergency contacts, allergies, family medical history. I was sitting at the dining table, filling it out, when I noticed a section asking about hereditary conditions. Something about it made me pause. I remember staring at the paper, tapping my pen, thinking, none of this matches me. I laughed it off at first, because who actually knows every genetic condition in their family? So I asked Amber, genuinely, casually. I walked into the living room where she was scrolling on her phone and said, "Hey, do you remember anything about her biological dad's medical history? School needs it." I swear, the temperature in the room dropped. She froze, her eyes narrowing like I had just slapped the phone out of her hand. "Why are you asking me that?" she snapped, sitting up straight. I blinked, confused, and said, "Because the school form," but she cut me off, raising her voice. "You're interrogating me now, seriously, after everything I've done?" I remember feeling my stomach sink. It was a simple question, not an accusation. Her reaction didn't fit at all, and something inside me, some quiet instinct I'd ignored for years, finally stirred. That night, she took her phone into the bathroom and stayed there for almost an hour. I sat on the couch listening to the shower that wasn't running, the faucet that wasn't dripping. I remember thinking, who are you talking to, and why do you need to hide it? When she finally came out, her eyes were puffy, not from crying, but from anger. She walked past me without a word. I should have pressed her. Instead, I swallowed it like I always did, having no idea that one innocent question had just cracked open the first door to the truth. A few weeks after that blow-up over the school form, Amber came to me with this trembling smile and said, "We're pregnant." I remember feeling this mix of shock and joy, the kind that hits your chest so hard you forget how to breathe for a second. I picked her up, spun her around, kissed her forehead. Exactly how a husband is supposed to react. But the moment the excitement settled, something cold and heavy dropped into my stomach. Because the timing didn't make sense, not even close. We hadn't been intimate in over a month. Her words, not mine. She'd been too tired, too stressed, too not in the mood, and I respected that. I didn't push. So when she told me the due date the doctor estimated, my brain quietly did the math, and the numbers didn't line up at all. I tried to tell myself I was overthinking it, but it was like trying to convince your body to stop reacting to a punch. The doubt was instinctive, immediate, and painful. One night, trying to be supportive, I asked gently, "Hey, are you sure about the dates? Maybe we should double-check with the doctor." She whipped around so fast I thought she'd hurt her neck. "What are you implying?" she hissed, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "You think I'm lying? You think I cheated?" She said the word cheated like she was tasting poison. I stammered, "I'm just asking." But she marched into the bedroom, slamming the door behind her. After that, everything shifted. She became different, overly affectionate one moment, rubbing my shoulders, making my favorite meals, kissing my cheek like we were in some commercial. Then cold and distant the next, locking her phone, stepping outside for calls, coming home late from shifts she never used to have. I kept trying to tell myself she was stressed because of the pregnancy, because that explanation was easier to swallow, but deep down, a quiet truth started whispering in my chest. This baby might not be mine. And that whisper was about to become impossible to ignore. The night, everything shifted. It happened by pure accident, one of those cruel coincidences life throws at you when you least expect it. Amber had fallen asleep on the couch after one of her sudden, long shifts, clutching her phone against her chest like it was a lifeline. I went to pick her up to carry her to bed, and that's when it happened. Her phone buzzed, and the screen lit up. No lock screen, no password prompt, just an open message thread. For a moment I hesitated, hovering between trust and the gnawing dread that had been growing inside me for months. Then I saw the name, Evan. Not a coworker, not a friend, not a family member. The preview alone made my blood run cold. Can't wait to see our baby, love. My heart started pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. I swallowed hard, glanced at Amber, still snoring softly, and opened the thread. What I saw, I still feel physically sick remembering it. Messages between them going back months. Late night, I miss you. Hotel confirmations. Heart emojis. Photos of them together. Her smiling in ways she hadn't smiled at me in years. Conversations about their future, their family, their little girl. And then the message that gutted me more than anything. He'll take care of the kids so we don't have to deal with anything. He, me, the man who changed diapers, packed lunches, worked overtime, built a life around them. I stared at those words until my vision blurred. My hands shook so violently I had to set the phone down to steady myself. The room felt like it was spinning, like gravity itself was collapsing. And yet, I didn't wake her, I didn't scream, I didn't break anything. I just stood there, breathing in the truth I had never wanted to face. I wasn't just being cheated on, I was being used. But I didn't know then that this was only the beginning of the betrayal. There were still deeper cuts waiting for me. The moment I saw those messages, something inside me shut off. Not in a dramatic, heartbroken way, but in a cold, almost clinical way. It was like a switch flipped. I didn't feel rage or desperation like I'd always imagined someone would in a moment like that. I felt clarity, a terrifying, focused clarity. If I confronted her right then, she'd twist it, cry, manipulate, and turn everything back on me like she always did. So instead, I closed her phone, placed it gently on the couch beside her, and carried her to bed as if nothing had changed. The next morning, she woke up smiling, stretching, brushing her fingers against my arm. "Thanks for letting me sleep," she murmured, kissing my cheek. I forced myself to smile back. "Of course," I said. My voice didn't crack. My hands didn't shake. She had no idea that I had read every lie she had typed with those same hands the night before. Throughout the day, I watched her like a stranger studying an enemy. Every laugh she faked. Every "love you" she tossed over her shoulder. Every time she angled her phone away from me. It was all clear now, painfully clear. That night, while she was in the shower, I sat at my desk and began gathering everything. Screenshots, timestamps, saved messages, photos, evidence. I created a folder on my laptop labeled Insurance. A cruel name, maybe, but accurate. If she was going to treat me like a backup plan, I needed protection. Still, part of me, some naive, pathetic part, kept whispering, maybe it's not what it looks like. Maybe there's an explanation. But I shut that voice down. I'd given her the benefit of the doubt for years, and all it earned me was becoming the fool in someone else's secret story. Over the next few days, I watched her lies pile up like dirty laundry she thought I couldn't smell. I didn't react, I didn't question, I didn't accuse. I just waited, because something told me this betrayal had deeper layers, and I needed to see every single one of them before I made my move. I thought I was already living in the worst version of my reality, but life wasn't done breaking me yet. A few days after discovering the messages, the school sent another email requesting additional medical details, specifically from the biological father. That word, biological, echoed in my head like a hammer hitting metal. I stared at my daughter's photo on my desk, her missing front tooth, her crooked little smile. My heart twisted. I didn't want to doubt her. I didn't want to doubt us. But the thought lodged itself in my chest like a splinter I couldn't ignore. So I made a decision I never imagined I'd make. I ordered a DNA test. I told Amber it was part of the school form requirements, and she didn't question it. She was too distracted messaging Evan to notice anything I did. I swabbed my daughter's cheek myself one morning, making it a silly tongue tickle game so she wouldn't be scared. When she giggled, I almost cried. The guilt felt like a weight pressing against my ribs, but there was no turning back. The results came a week later. I opened the email at 2:11 a.m., sitting alone in the living room with only the glow of the screen lighting my face. I clicked the PDF, my hands were cold, my chest felt tight. And then I saw it. Probability of paternity, 0%. I just stared at the number, 0, not 50%, not 30%, 0. For 7 years, I had loved, protected, provided for, and built my life around a child Amber knew wasn't mine. She'd let me fall in love with someone else's daughter while playing the role of the grateful wife. I didn't scream, I didn't break down, I didn't throw anything. I just sat there in the dark, feeling the slow, suffocating realization settle over me. Amber hadn't betrayed me once. She had built our entire marriage on a lie, and now I knew I wasn't just dealing with infidelity, I was dealing with a 7-year deception, and the truth was only getting darker from here. After the DNA results, I spent an entire night sitting in the living room, staring at nothing. I expected anger, rage, something explosive, but what I felt was something quieter, heavier, like grief mixed with clarity. My daughter, she wasn't mine biologically, but she still called me Daddy with a kind of love that didn't care about bloodlines or DNA percentages, and that was the only reason I didn't fall apart. She was innocent in all of this. She didn't choose the lies that brought her into my life. She chose me. The next morning, she ran into the kitchen like she always did, hair messy, pajamas twisted, holding her stuffed rabbit by the ear. "Daddy, cereal, please," she yelled, climbing into her favorite chair. I swear, my knees almost buckled. I walked over, kissed the top of her head, and whispered, "Of course, sweetheart." She didn't know that the world she trusted had shifted under my feet. She didn't know that the word Daddy pierced me in a new way now, both painful and grounding. Meanwhile, Amber floated around the house like nothing was wrong, humming while checking her phone every few minutes. She didn't notice the way I watched her, the way my eyes followed every movement. She thought she still had all the power. She thought her secrets were still safe. But I was studying her now, observing everything, collecting every lie she casually tossed into the air like confetti. One afternoon, I caught her sneaking off to take a call on the porch. I stood by the kitchen window just close enough to hear her whisper, I know, he's clueless. Stop worrying." She even laughed, as if I was some pathetic placeholder too dumb to see the truth. But I stayed quiet. I didn't confront her. I didn't give her the satisfaction of seeing me break. Instead, I made a promise to myself. I would protect my daughter, my real daughter, no matter what biology said. And if Amber thought my silence meant ignorance, she had no idea what was coming. Once I accepted that my daughter wasn't biologically mine, the next question hit me like a brick. Then who is her father? I didn't ask Amber. I couldn't. Any confrontation would tip my hand, and she'd twist, manipulate, and bury the truth deeper. So I did what any man in my position would do. I started digging. Quietly, methodically, like a detective who never asked to be one. I went back through old emails, messages, even photos from when Amber and I first started dating. There were small clues I'd never noticed. Names in passing, comments from her friends, mentions of an ex she always referred to as a mistake or a closed chapter. One name stood out more than the others. Mark. He was someone she used to talk about in this odd, dismissive way, like she hated even acknowledging he existed. And people don't avoid saying a name that hard unless there's a reason. Using bits of info I collected over the years. His college, his old workplace, mutual acquaintances. I found him on social media. Same jawline, same eyes, same smile my daughter had. My heart thudded painfully in my chest. I debated for days whether I should reach out. What would I even say? "Hey man, remember Amber? I think I've been raising your kid?" It sounded insane. But one night when Amber claimed she had a prenatal massage and left the house in full makeup and heels, I finally messaged him. He responded within minutes. We met at a small coffee shop 2 towns over. When I walked in, he was already there, fidgeting with his cup. His eyes lifted to mine, and something in his expression told me he already knew this conversation would hurt. "I need to ask you something," I said, sitting down. "Did you and Amber, 7 years ago, could you be—" He didn't let me finish. His face crumpled. He whispered, "I always wondered what happened to her. She disappeared. She never told me she was pregnant." My heart sank, because I could see it. The recognition in his eyes when I showed him a photo of my daughter. And that's when I realized Amber hadn't just lied to me. She had stolen fatherhood from another man too. Walking out of that coffee shop, I felt like the world had tilted. It wasn't just my life Amber had derailed. She had torn another man out of his child's story without hesitation. Mark sat there shaking, wiping his eyes, whispering, "I would have been there. I would have taken responsibility." And hearing that, it broke something inside me all over again. Amber didn't just lie to protect herself. She lied to control the narrative, to build a version of life where she held all the power, while everyone else played roles she assigned them. By the time I got home that night, something had changed in me. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to accuse. I wasn't going to give her any warning. I was going to dismantle the life she built on lies, quietly, methodically, legally. The kind of revenge that couldn't backfire because it wasn't fueled by emotion, but by truth. The next morning, while Amber slept in after another long shift, I booked an appointment with a family attorney. I didn't tell her where I was going. I didn't leave hints. I sat in that office, across from a woman who listened without flinching as I laid out the evidence, the messages, the hotel receipts, the timelines, the DNA results, the conversation with Mark. At the end, she folded her hands and said, "You have more than enough to protect yourself. And the children." That word, children, hit me in a strange way, because biology aside, those kids depended on me, and I wasn't about to let Amber's recklessness tear their lives apart the way she had torn ours. My lawyer explained something I didn't expect. Cheating itself wasn't the main factor in custody battles. Deceit, neglect, and instability were, and Amber had provided me with a mountain of proof. Over the next days, I gathered everything. Every lie, every late night, every message to Evan. I saved bank statements showing her girls' nights were actually hotel charges. I documented the time she ignored our daughter for her secret calls. I wasn't acting out of rage anymore. I was preparing for war, and Amber would never see it coming. The night everything truly broke, the night I hit rock bottom, started with another one of Amber's casual lies. She walked into the kitchen, already dressed up, heels on, makeup flawless, and said, "I'm going to Jenna's for a pregnancy girls' night. Don't wait up." She kissed our daughter on the head but didn't even glance at me. I just nodded, playing the role she expected, the quiet, clueless husband. But something about the way she rushed out, the way she clutched her purse, the way she avoided my eyes, it all screamed wrong. Hours passed, then more hours. Midnight. 2 a.m. 3:15 a.m. Still nothing. Our daughter fell asleep on the couch waiting for her, her tiny hand holding her stuffed rabbit like it would keep her safe. I carried her to bed, tucked her in, and sat on the floor beside her, staring at the wall as the truth settled like a weight in my chest. Amber wasn't coming home. Not to me, not to her daughter. By 5 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I opened the Find My Phone tracking app Amber had once insisted we install for emergencies. I clicked her icon. The dot appeared instantly. Downtown, a hotel, not a restaurant, not a friend's house, a hotel. My ears rang, my jaw clenched so tightly it hurt, but I forced myself to breathe and drove there. I didn't go inside, I didn't confront anyone. I just sat in my car across the street, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. At exactly 8:04 a.m., the doors opened. Amber walked out laughing, her hair messy, her dress wrinkled, and beside her was Evan, carrying her bags like they were on vacation. He leaned in, kissed her, she kissed back, and something inside me cracked in a way I can't fully describe, like watching the death of everything I'd built, everything I'd believed, everything I'd fought to protect. But I didn't cry, I didn't honk, I didn't drive away, I just watched them, and quietly realized the marriage had died long before this moment. When Amber finally walked through the front door that morning, hours after sunrise, hair still smelling faintly of hotel soap, she had the audacity to act annoyed. She tossed her purse onto the chair and said, "Why are you up so early? you look creepy just sitting there. No apology, no explanation, nothing. Just irritation like I had inconvenienced her. I forced a small, tired smile and shrugged. Couldn't sleep, I said. My voice was steady, almost too steady. She studied me for a second, suspicious. Then her expression softened into that familiar smugness. The look she wore whenever she believed she held the upper hand. Well, maybe try not to worry so much, she said, brushing past me and heading toward the bedroom. That day, she acted different. Not guilty, never guilty, but confident. Almost triumphant. She hummed while making breakfast. She made jokes. She actually kissed my cheek in front of our daughter, something she hadn't done in months. And every time she caught me looking at her, she gave this satisfied little smile like she knew a secret and believed I'd never figure it out. She genuinely thought she had me wrapped around her finger. Later, I overheard her on the phone whispering, "I told you he won't do anything. He's not like that. He'll just take care of the kids until everything settles." She laughed softly. He's predictable. Predictable. That word stabbed deeper than any insult she'd ever thrown at me. But I stayed silent, playing the role she expected. I made dinner, helped with homework, cleaned up toys. Meanwhile, she walked around like a woman planning her escape, texting Evan non-stop, already imagining their new life. She thought she'd won. She thought I was too weak, too loyal, too blind to see what was unfolding. But what she didn't know was simple. The more she gloated, the more evidence I gathered. The more she underestimated me, the stronger my case became. The more she smirked, the closer she was to losing everything. And I was done letting her write the story. My silence wasn't submission. It was strategy. The day Amber went into labor was the first time I felt nothing for her. No panic, no excitement, no fear. Just a cold, distant attachment that scared me with how natural it felt. She burst into the living room, clutching her stomach and shouting, "It's time!" like we were still some loving couple about to welcome a miracle into the world. I grabbed my keys without saying much. The drive to the hospital felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life unfold from the passenger seat of my own body. When we arrived, nurses rushed her into a room, and I stood there awkwardly, hands in my pockets, feeling like an outsider observing a performance. She kept reaching out, trying to grab my hand, forcing a strained smile. "Please, just stay with me," she whispered. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Silence told her more truth than words could. Hours later, after shouting, crying, cursing, and glaring at me like I'd put her here myself, the baby arrived. A tiny, wrinkled, red-faced little girl. The doctor lifted her gently, turned toward me, and then paused. Hesitated. That hesitation said everything. The baby didn't resemble me, not even slightly. Dark hair, different skin tone, different features. The doctor looked at Amber and asked, "Do we need to update the father of record information?" The air in the room froze. Amber's eyes widened in panic. "No, he's the father. He is!" she snapped, her voice pitchy and desperate. The doctor's skeptical expression didn't budge. Nurses exchanged glances. It was humiliating for her, but revealing for me. Every lie she had rehearsed so confidently crumbled the moment biology stepped into the room. Even worse? Evan didn't show. Not for the birth, not for support, not for anything. She called him between contractions. He didn't answer. She texted him. Messages stayed on delivered. By the time we were discharged, she was pacing the hallway muttering, "Why isn't he picking up? Where is he?" Her voice trembling with actual fear for the first time. And I stood there behind her, watching the world she built on secrets start collapsing. Piece by piece, lie by lie. Amber was still recovering from childbirth when everything finally snapped into place. Not for her, but for me. She walked around the house with this jittery, anxious energy, checking her phone constantly, jumping every time it buzzed. Evan still wasn't answering. She kept whispering, "He wouldn't abandon me. He wouldn't," as if saying it out loud could make it true. Meanwhile, I moved silently through the house, packing evidence into a folder, printing emails, highlighting timestamps, preparing for the final strike she never saw coming. Exactly 1 week after the birth, I filed for divorce. I told the process server to deliver the papers to our doorstep, and I stood in the hallway holding the baby while watching through the window as Amber opened the door. At first, she looked confused, then curious. Then her face dropped completely. What is this?" she whispered, flipping through the papers with trembling hands. Then she saw the words, "Petition for divorce and full custody." She stormed inside, slamming the door so hard the baby startled and began crying. "What is this?" she screamed. I stayed calm. "It's everything you've given me grounds for." "You can't do this to me," she yelled, her face blotchy red. "You can't take my kids." "They're not your kids," I said quietly. "They're ours, mine by choice, yours by biology, and you haven't been their mother in a long time." In court, it got worse for her. My lawyer presented everything: DNA results, screenshots, hotel confirmations, bank statements showing she'd drained savings for her weekend getaways, messages with Evan discussing their escape plan. When they read aloud her text saying I would take care of the kids so we don't have to deal with anything, she buried her face in her hands and sobbed. Her lawyer looked defeated. The judge looked disgusted. The ruling was swift. I received full custody of both children. Amber would have supervised visitation until further review. No claim on the house, no financial leverage, nothing. When the judge announced the decision, Amber's face twisted. Shock, betrayal, disbelief. For the first time ever, she had no lies left to hide behind. And I walked out of that courtroom finally, mercifully, free, with everything she thought she could steal from me. The day after court, the house felt different. Quiet, but not the suffocating kind of quiet we'd lived in for months. It was peaceful, still, like the walls themselves finally exhaled. Amber came by that evening for her supervised visit, and I could see the shock hadn't left her face. She walked around the living room like she didn't recognize it anymore, like the place she used to control had slipped through her fingers and become foreign territory. I didn't say much. I didn't need to. The divorce papers and the judge's ruling had spoken louder than I ever could. She tried to corner me when the supervisor stepped outside to take a call. "Look, we can fix this," she whispered harshly. "We can talk. We can work things out." Her eyes darted around as if trying to rebuild the illusion of control through sheer desperation. I folded my arms. "Amber, there's nothing to fix." She stepped closer. "This is our home." "No," I said softly. "It's mine, always was." The house had been paid for with my premarital savings, something she'd always dismissed as our starting point, but the court didn't see it that way, and neither did the law. When she realized she had no legal claim to it, not after the deceit, not after the financial evidence, not after the abandonment, something inside her cracked. Her voice shook. "So what, I'm just supposed to leave just like that?" I didn't answer. She already knew. A few days later, she tried another tactic: social media. Her posts were dramatic essays about being a betrayed wife, a broken mother, a woman wronged by the system. But the truth spreads fast when you've left your entire digital footprint dripping with evidence. Screenshots leaked. Her own messages circulated. Even some of her friends messaged me privately saying, "We didn't know. We're sorry." She deleted everything within 24 hours. At one point, she stood on the porch with a suitcase, staring through the open door at the home she'd assumed she would always own a piece of. "I can't believe you're doing this to me," she whispered. But she was wrong. I wasn't doing anything to her. I was simply stopping her from doing any more damage. And as she walked down the steps, the house behind me felt like mine for the first time in years. Solid, safe, and finally rid of her lies. The first morning after Amber moved out, the house felt almost unnervingly calm. No slammed doors, no whispered phone calls, no tension humming beneath every interaction. Just the quiet sound of my daughter eating breakfast, tapping her spoon against her bowl, humming some little song she made up on the spot. I sat across from her watching her swing her legs and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. Not happiness, yet, but relief. The kind that lets you breathe, all the way into your lungs again. I knew rebuilding wouldn't be easy. My daughter had questions, real, painful questions no child should ever have to ask. Why doesn't Mommy live here now? Did I do something wrong? I swallowed my hurt, knelt in front of her and said, "None of this is your fault. You are loved. You are safe." She threw her arms around my neck, and I held her longer than usual, promising silently that I would never let her feel abandoned the way Amber had left all of us. I also reached out to Mark. Slowly, carefully. I told him I wasn't trying to erase myself from her life. I just believed she deserved the truth. He broke down again when I offered supervised introductions. "I don't want to disrupt her world," he said. "I just want to know her." His voice shook, and I realized he was just another victim of Amber's lies, trying to find his place in a story he never even knew existed. Around that time, I started therapy, something I'd avoided for years. Sitting across from a stranger and saying my entire marriage was a lie felt humiliating at first. But session by session, something shifted. I learned the difference between loyalty and self-sacrifice, between patience and enabling, between love and dependency. I learned how much of myself I'd lost without even noticing. Our home slowly became warm again. Movie nights on the couch, bedtime stories, pancake Saturdays. The baby cooed in her bassinet beside us, blissfully unaware of the chaos she was born into. Our daughter started laughing more, sleeping better, smiling like a kid who felt safe again. And with each passing day I realized something simple but powerful. Amber had tried to break this family, but we were rebuilding, stronger, freer, and without her shadow darkening every corner. Some people imagine revenge as something loud, screaming matches, dramatic exits, explosive confrontations. But my revenge came in silence. It came in the quiet mornings where the kids played on the rug without tension hanging overhead. It came in the evenings where I didn't have to wonder why my wife hadn't come home. It came in the steady, peaceful rhythm of a home, finally free of lies. Amber used to say I was predictable, that I was the safe choice. She had no idea how much strength lives inside quiet men until the day she realized she couldn't manipulate me anymore. She still tries to contact me. New numbers, blocked IDs, even emails that start with, "Please, just hear me out." I don't respond. I don't need to. There's nothing left to say. Whatever version of me she thought she controlled died the moment I watched her walk out of that hotel with Evan. Whatever grip she believed she had snapped the second the judge handed down custody, and whatever fantasy she spun about building a new life without consequences shattered when Evan moved states and cut her off entirely. She's living with a friend now, bouncing, between couch cushions and excuses. I don't gloat about it. I don't celebrate her downfall. I don't need to. The universe handled that part for me. My focus is on the kids, on bedtime routines, preschool drop-offs, bottle feedings, coloring books, therapy sessions, and teaching my daughter that love isn't supposed to hurt, confuse, or vanish without warning. Some nights, after the kids fall asleep, I sit on the porch with a cup of tea and let the quiet wrap around me. For so long, silence in this house felt dangerous, like it held secrets waiting to surface. Now it feels like peace. Hard-earned, painful, humbling peace. I think back to who I was before everything fell apart. The hopeful husband, the loyal provider, the man desperate to believe in the best parts of someone who didn't deserve it. I don't hate him. I just wish he'd known sooner that walking away isn't weakness. In the end, I didn't expose Amber to family or friends. I didn't scream. I didn't destroy her reputation. I simply let the truth do what truth always does: unravel lies quietly, and leave the guilty alone with their consequences. And that silence, that was my loudest victory.